It was good to speak to you today. I know we've not got too long, so I'll just kind of crack on really. And I really enjoyed the movie. It was the first. I've actually just been on paternity leave and just come back. It was the first thing I've watched, and it was. I loved the kind of. It felt like a real kind of that gritty kind of Shane Meadows-esque kind of British drama, which I'm such a big fan of, which we'll kind of get into later.
Yes.
I don't usually talk to actors too much about kind of training and stuff, but when you're playing a boxer and a fair few scenes are kind of in the ring, did you have to kind of go for a bit of a training regime ahead of this shoot? And is it important as well to capture those kind of physical nuances that a boxer kind of has?
I think so. I think, there's still so many fans of boxing, fighting in general, but there's already so many fans that it's really important to give it that, authenticity because what are we doing? We're trying to tell a story about a guy who lives in a field in a caravan, so he can't be shredded and look great. We're telling a story about a person who's estranged from his daughter and doesn't really get on with his ex-wife. So all of those authenticities have to be right. So then when we get into the fight, it has to be real. The hard part was keeping weight on because it's such an aerobic exercise that they then want you to turn up looking like a bag of milk and looking a bit bulky and a bit burly, a bit like old gentleman gym style type of boxing. Um, that was the hard part. I was miserable eating all that crap food. It was fucking terrible. I love shit food as well. I love it, but yeah, I've never thought I'd be miserable eating, chips.
It sounds like me the first week of January. The beginning of December, it's all great, and then by the end,
Yeah,
it's like I just need a salad.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very much how it felt. Yeah,
And I mean, although of course the film isn't like explicitly about boxing, it's a very kind of much a character study of this character. But it's obviously boxing remains a kind of theme and an environment
completely.
the audience kind of steps into. What do you
Yeah.
think it is about this sport that just lends itself so well to kind of cinematic storytelling?
I think anyone who's tried it knows what it takes to even just get up and go for the run. Forget the fight, but just that element. So, who is that person who's still willing to get up and go in and be beaten up by a young prospect and then get into a terrible circumstance with his mischievous looking friend? It's that. It's really a test of mental strength as well as physical strength. So I think we all appreciate how much effort it takes to box. And so it says a lot about the character.
And I mean, it's kind of testament really to your performance, but some scenes felt that they were completely kind of improvised. Was
Uh-huh.
that the case at all in this? Were you guys given any like license to kind of to riff on what was on the script?
It was in the scene with the daughter, I think, where she's outside the school. What are they called? They were called principals at the Grove where I went, but it was just the School of Academia and Sports. What are they called? The headmaster.
Oh, the yeah,
Outside the headmaster's office.
well, yeah, we say principal too, but yeah,
Yeah,
headmaster. Yeah,
yeah. So outside the headmaster's office, it was that because really what we were trying to do is find where we can kind of make it authentic and what we were talking about. It was really well written, but I said, look, this is really a time where he's got to tell her what he wished he could have always told her. Like he's got this big wish that he's going to have one more chance and be a champ and do these things, but really, what is it? It's this one opportunity for him to tell him what he wished he had heard and what he wished he'd been able to say. So somehow we had to figure out what that was. And there was just a few little improvs in that and a few little improvs in the arguments. But basically, no, that was it. It was a really well written script. And that's what happens.
And as I sort of mentioned at the start, you can kind of see that kind of shade of Shane Meadows in this. But
Mm.
I think that's because his imprint now in British cinema is so striking. It kind of permeates so many
Yeah.
areas of kind of British
Yeah.
film. But I'm interested to know, as an actor who kind of came out of that school of acting, what did you learn from those experiences working with Shane and that kind of collective that you've taken with you across your career?
Oh man, so much because without Shane, really, I don't think I'd have a career. And I know that's a big burden for Shane, and I'm sure he'd shun it off and say, no, 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 no. But really, what Shane taught me just about the business element and about how he edits. I mean, I remember watching the first cut of Dead Man's Shoes when when the cat jumps up on the fence and they'd left in like a meow, and I was like, what the fuck's going on with that? They'd left this really kind of raw version, but I saw what Shane had cut. I knew there were things that I hadn't purposefully done, that hadn't acted, that it just kind of caught like a little look up or a little like turn. And I realized how much the edit was telling the story. So, you know, Shane's just phenomenal. He's one of those people. The thing I took from Shane is being light-hearted before takes, being light-hearted on set. He doesn't make it serious. He doesn't put this big burden of how important everything is. He keeps it very light-hearted, and he lets it be fun and playful, which sounds pretentious, but it's actually just this really nice place to be, because it's so overwhelming. You know, it's 12-hour days, and you can get so wrapped up in how serious this is and what this is going to mean and all that crap. And he just lets all that fly out the window, and you have a great time. So I learned a huge amount from him, and I think that influence goes into this film. Everyone was there and nervous and anxious to do well, but we had a fun time. We had a great fun time, and that shows in the picture, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because you've been in some kind of big major blockbusters now, and you've got some.
Sure.
But did this, in some ways, feel a bit like a return to your roots, Salvable?
Yeah, absolutely, and purposefully so. You know, because the truth is, you know, these are young directors. This is their first movie, so this is their debut, and it's nice to be involved in that part of someone's career. To think that they'll, you know, it's so important, your first film, and you learn so much from it. And if it goes well, it's such a nice pat on the back. But you know, it's such a big thing, and so to be involved in that and see that energy and feel that energy, it was great to be around. You know, and Bjorn and Johnny, they were just so enthusiastic and so happy to be there, and that's nice. Sometimes the big films get a bit stagnant. Everyone's doing a bit of a job, and that's not fun, you know.
Yeah, because there's that kind of old sort of saying, isn't it? They sort of say one for you, one for me type thing. This idea of
Right.
doing a kind of bigger budget movie, then something maybe that's a bit more of a kind of passion project. Is that, would you say that something kind of, is there something real to that statement? Do you think there is this sort of a sense of that in the industry for actors, that you do sometimes have to dip into a film like that to make a film like this?
Absolutely, yeah, because you know there's a reason you started, and then there's what actually ends up happening. And if you're lucky enough to have what people consider a career, things that have spanned over periods of times and a number of pictures, you're sort of in this position that's very lucky. So you do start to think, oh man, I want to go back to when we all had to carry the cans, and we all had to move the apple boxes, and we all had to, you know, turn, and we had to drive ourselves to these little weird locations in the middle of Penarth in Wales, you know. So yeah, there's a joy to that kind of filmmaking that has to keep happening. And you know, you hope the technology allows more people to be ambitious like that. But of course, you know, you still got to talk to producers and convince people of money. But I think the thing that people should take from Shane is Shane does that. He writes a script for producers, gets his money in place, and then that sort of disappears, and he goes on this improv thing. But I mean, that's an incredible talent. Not everyone can do that, but you can go out and shoot a scene with your mates. And there's something exhilarating about that. It's good fun, and then learn how to edit, you know.
I was actually up in I was doing a little bit of an EPK job recently. Ended up in Pontefract recently on a shoot.
Did you?
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
yeah.
Did you get by the castle? Were you near the
No,
castle?
I wasn't there long enough, sadly, but it was for,
Okay.
it's where they were doing Adolescence, the Netflix Stephen Graham show.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
nice. Wicked. Yeah, good
yeah,
show.
yeah.
We lived at the row of houses at the bottom of the castle. So if you go up the side of it, you're facing it, I mean, it depends where you are. But go up the right hand side up there. That's the road we used to live on.
Actually, talking of film locations, my good friend of mine lives in Derbyshire, and I went up to visit. He's not too far from Matlock, and he kind of took us on a bit of a dead man's shoes sort of like, you know, to tour. I mean, there's only about two or three places that we could go to, but he took me to that quite haunting place where obviously with Anthony, you know, not spoiler alert here.
Nice. That was an
Yeah,
old zoo.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I mean,
It
have
was
you
an
ever
old
been
zoo
back?
originally.
Well, have you ever gone back to any locations you've shot at just to kind of visit, as a bit of a trip down memory lane across your career?
I have, yeah, I have. There's a couple. I mean, Matlock's the reverse, because I used to go up there myself. So we used to go up the hikes of Abraham. I went to Catholic school as a kid, so we used to go up that way anyway. And then when I rode a motorcycle, Matlock's brilliant because it's like hilly and curvy. So there's beautiful riding up there. And then, but going back, Golden Ears Park in Canada, I shot in Vancouver, and there's this beautiful place called Golden Ears Park. And it's massive. I mean, massive, massive, massive. But I took my family there, and it's magic. It's really like a magical forest. But that's where we shot Planet of the Apes.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, I was gonna. I mean, I will move away from Dead Man's Shoes in a second. But I just want because I just want to say one thing because it means that film means so much to me. It's actually partly why I do this job because I studied it at school and I wrote an essay about it, and it was the first time I'd ever written about a film and like a text about a kind of film, and I love the experience of kind of delving into the kind of analytical aspects of movies. And it's always been a sort of special film that kind of always, and it's one of the greatest British films of all time, but it feels like something that helped push me into my career. So I just wondered, did you have any kind of equivalent films or experiences that you've ever had that you really felt set you on the path for your career and what you're doing today?
Yeah, I mean, so many. I mean, you're talking about that, but I had a teacher, two teachers, in fact, Ray Dix and Jonathan Cleaver, who both at my school, The Grove, were the drama teachers there, and both of them encouraged me way beyond really the reason. I never really wanted to do it. I thought it was silly, and it was a fear, a thing I didn't want to do. Um, but they both really taught me about the effort required to do the job, if it wants to become an actual profession, but even just to do it for fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, listen, man, I sat there, I watched Room for No Brass, and I couldn't believe I was going to get to work with Paddy. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, that performance, that voice he did of Bartley Gorman, the Gypsy Fighter, turned it into what he turned it into. It's just phenomenal, and it's so out of nowhere. It's its own. It's like a Withnell and I performance. It's so original and so unique that it'll always be that man in Room for Emma Brass. So that inspired me to want to act, and then to be working with Shane. I just couldn't believe my luck, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. I
Couldn't.
mean, I mean, Paddy is such an incredible actor. But talking of working, obviously opposite, kind of committed, very diligent kind of performers. You obviously worked with Shia LaBeouf on this occasion. He's incredible. I've interviewed him before as well, and he's incredibly committed to his roles, and it really shows in what we see on screen. What was he kind of like as a screen partner on this occasion?
He's wonderful. I mean, I consider him a dear friend. So he's one of those people who I don't see a lot. He's a very busy human being, but anytime I do, it feels like I saw him yesterday. And he's a great scene partner. I mean, for me, the intensity that you expect wasn't really there. He brought this mischief. He brought this kind of like air of mischief. I was like, that's exactly how it has to be. Because if we're doing someone who's going to lead us this astray, we're going to find Sal being led astray. He's got to have that mischief. And that was something very different from everyone else who auditioned, was kind of telling us how tough they were and all these tough things they'd been doing in life. And that was totally wrong, the wrong way to go. So we're so lucky to have a person of Shia's caliber come in and get it right. And of course he gets it right because he's an exceptional talent. But he's very much a regular human being. So for me, look, man, he was trying to make me corpse. His whole goal was to try and make me crack up on a take and ruin a take. So, and that I thoroughly enjoy. That's my favourite part of the whole thing. Is denying it, the masochist in me. But so there's those elements. So yeah, he was always trying to like, and bits got in the film, like he bent down and tied my shoelace, or he was doing a thumb war before like the big gypsy fight. So yeah, he was just a splendid human being. He's struggling, trying. He's a regular man with his own trials and tribulations, but he is just an exceptional talent. And working with him, you realise that you think, oh man, he's exceptional.
You're so right about the character though. Like to lead someone astray, it's not just about someone being fearful to them. They've got to have that glint in the eyes. Charisma is a huge part, really, isn't it? About having.
That's what it all was. Being tough doesn't mean anything. It really didn't boil down to that. And it's tough because it's going down the boxing gyms, Carl Front. You got a lot of like macho men hanging around, and he let all that slide off his back, and he was like, "No, I'm not doing the macho man." I mean, he got big. I mean, he ate the same way we ate, and he got massive for the role, but that wasn't what it was. He was trying to find that mischief. He was trying to find that like what leads you astray.
Yeah, there's a good accent as well. It got me thinking.
It
Actually,
was.
have you ever had to do an accent that you found especially tricky, or any kind of particular words or sentences that you've really kind of stumbled across in your career? Because obviously, accents is such a huge part, really, of what you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, the American accent I don't find easy. I find it very difficult. I have to stay in it, much to the annoyance of all my cast mates. But I have to stay in the accent. And I did a thing, Warhorse, and I'm doing a Geordie accent. And then they put me with a Liverpudlian. Of course, it turned out to be my old mate from Rock and Roller. So I was so happy to see him. But when you're hanging out with a Scouse and you're trying to do a Geordie, it's just that like blend of like, there's a muscle in your mouth. You're like, oh, it's so close. And it's so addictive to try and do like a Scouse accent. So that was the only time I was really struggling on set. And before I was able to, Toby, I was like, fuck it, man, you've got to stop, please. Because every day I'm going to start doing him Scouse. And halfway through the Geordie soldier, I'll be like, whereabouts in Newcastle is he from? So that was the only time I had a hard time. Yeah.
Yeah, because I always wonder with American, because I think there's this kind of like generic American accent, but the second you get regional, I guess it takes on a whole new kind of.
Oh, regionals are bastard, because there's also colloquialisms, and there's things that like, and you're filming in the town usually. You're usually in a place where it's the accent, and so season 1 comes out of a show where you're doing an accent, and if you didn't get it right, everyone's going to be like, "Where are you from?" But luckily, with that the Servant I did, which is the longest time I'd done an American accent, everyone in Philly, thought I was either from Jersey or from Philly. So I was somewhere in the region, enough to pass, and that's all I cared about,
My final question, because I'm sort of out of time, and I've spoken. I was going to ask, and the only it's just because it's in my head today. Because I actually went this morning to a footage screening of the new Fantastic Four, because all the interviews are taking place this week, and obviously someone close to that franchise, and this is the same for the Planet of the Apes as well. Are you interested to see the kind of the latest take on it? A bit like with the Planet of the Apes, obviously that's now gone off in a kind of different path. Is it interesting as an actor to be part of a franchise and then see it with a whole new vision, whole new cast, and kind of see someone else's take on a kind of story so well?
Yeah, I'm excited, and I'm excited to see what Downey Jr. gets to do with Doctor Doom, because obviously he's going to smash it, and that's what they needed. They needed somebody who would do a good job, and they got it, I'm sure, with Robert. So I mean, yeah, it's great. I'm happy for them. I hope they've done a good version, because it is the tricky one to do. But they did Guardians of the Galaxy well, so that was a comic book that I couldn't have laid money they would have done well. That was a comic book no one wanted to read. I don't think. I can't remember anybody saying that, oh, it's a great comic, you gotta get it, man. It's got a raccoon who talks. But they killed it. It was a fantastic film, just brilliant, great fun film. So yeah, I'm excited, and I'm happy for them. But yeah, I wish it was me.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, I told Guardians of the Galaxy, it's still one of the best soundtracks as well to any film.
Yeah, tremendous. Yeah, truly tremendous. Yeah, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of out of time today, but thank you so much for giving me time.
What a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Yeah,
and best of luck with the release of Salvable. It's a really good film. I'm going to be making sure I catch it again at some point for sure.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Be well. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!